what we've got going on in New Zealand is very much a split between the way that care was delivered in the past and the way care will be delivered in the future. So in the past, sort of in the pre-COVID times, you could make good money from traditional aged care, and your top quartile providers could make 17,000 of EBITDA per bed, up to sort of 20,000 of EBITDA per bed. That's really contracted since the onset of COVID due to the massive increases in labour costs, other sorts of inflation, and also the government funding not keeping up the pace with the cost to deliver the care. So the real impetus over the last wee while has been to introduce care suites, which is a very similar model to our independent retirement village model, where you pay an entry payment, you get charged a DMF, and then the care fees are paid on top of that. So it does turn into quite a significant sort of payment for care. So effectively the resident is paying for all of the accommodation component. The care fees are means tested. So if you have more than $200,000 worth of assets, you do have to pay for your own level of care up to the rest home level. And if you're moved into a hospital, then the government would pay the top up. So it does become quite a significant impost on the retirement savings of the resident. If you do have more than $200,000 worth of assets to your name, you've got to pay sort of 50 grand a year for your care until your assets are diminished, and then the government would step in. Yeah, the issue that we've got with this approach is it does mean that the care suite model will go well, and it does require that incoming resident to have capital and funds available to enter the care suite model. And then we've obviously got the traditional aged care existing facilities where they're not making profit because of the level of funding. They've got no money to reinvest into their residential aged care facilities, and the quality of those facilities will decline. We've already seen probably over 1,000, probably close to 1,400 bed closures, traditional care bed closures in New Zealand in the last year and a half, just because there's a whole lot of people out there struggling to make ends meet with that provision of care.
In New Zealand, a new aged care bed outside of a retirement village has not been built in the last 10 years.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting times if you fast forward even 3 years, as you said, Chris, just on how the government's going to respond. And so obviously we're putting, we're talking to the government as often as we can about aged care funding, and the unintended consequence of underfunding aged care is that this disparity between the haves and the have-nots will get wider, and further down the track, if a person who's been worked their entire lives, they've had a role that maybe it was near the minimum wage, they're not going to have enough capital to get into a care suite. And if the aged care beds are closing, where does that person go when they need care? It'll either be home care, or when they get further down the path, they'll end up in the public hospital system, and that's something that we should be trying to avoid at all costs.